Hello! I'm being told I'm live and I'm tweeting it out right now so you can see me actually sending off the tweet. And there we go. And did anybody else think that it was going to be such a big deal that this Back to the Future thing? I swear to God, it's the only thing on my Twitter feed right now. Anyway, welcome to Healthcare Triage Live. We've just a few things of housekeeping. Mark asked me to remind everybody that the Reddit site is doing very well. reddit.com/h/hct triage r/r/hct triage, and we'll get a graphic up. You'll see it there. Check Facebook page as well, facebook.com/healthcare triage. We appreciate everybody going there, sharing the videos and everything else. Keep watching the videos, of course. Mondays was on autism guidelines. Next Mondays is great, and then the Monday after that's going to be great too. And Healthcare Triage news, of course, on Fridays. Finally, patreon.com/healthcare triage. We are, as always, overwhelmed by your continued support. It allows us to do all kinds of stuff like this wonderful mic and a new camera, which I am loving because it is making some of the shoots actually go a bit faster. It's awesome. And thanks to everybody for all your support. Let's get started. Question number one is Lola Brook. By the way, put your questions in the comments. That is the quickest way to get them, and we'll load them up so that I can see them and I can answer them. Lola Brookfield says, do you have any suggestions for severe depression treatment other than antidepressants, as I can't take them? I've been looking into omega-3 and vitamin D3 supplements, which are regulated here in the UK. So, okay, first of all, let's back into this question. I don't think that there's a lot of good evidence that any of those supplements work well at all. If they did, we wouldn't call them supplements, we would call them drugs. Because if there were substances that you could take that would wind up having clinical properties that could be proven in clinical trials, we would call those drugs. You have to remember that, when we prescribe, when we tell pregnant women to take folate, we don't call that supplements. We write a prescription or we tell them to take the vitamins because that we're treating, making sure that deficiencies don't occur. Natural substances like, willow bark, which work when people take them, are called aspirin and drugs. And the fact that omega-3 and vitamin D3 supplements, the fact that they're supplements is because they don't want to be regulated like drugs because they often can't be treated. If it turns out that they work that well, they would be drugs. They're regulated in the UK doesn't mean that they work. It means that, I'm guessing, it means that they check to make sure that they're not making any false claims and they're monitoring their content to see that they are what they are. And the FDA doesn't regulate supplements in the United States. That's how you wind up with those news stories that say that there's not even a molecule of the thing that says it is on the bottle, in the pill, because they're just not regulated. But supplements don't work. Now, having said that, the mainstay of treatment for most mental health issues, including depression, is a combination of therapy and pharmacology. And so you treat some things with drugs, you treat some things with therapy, you treat some things with both. When you say you can't take antidepressants, that leads to and I should pause as always, and I forget to do this. I'm not giving you medical advice. We don't give medical advice here on Healthcare Triage Live. If you want actual medical advice, you should talk to your medical professional and get medical advice. I talk about stuff, but this is not or should not be constituted or thought of as my giving you medical advice. There are many classes of antidepressants. They are not all the same. If you are allergic to a certain type or if you have bad side effects or reactions to a certain type, that doesn't mean that you would have them with all of them. And so given that you're telling me you can't take them, I don't know whether that's price, which is unlikely given that you're in the UK. It could be that you're allergic, again, which would mean that there's lots of things. It could be you don't want to take a drug. That's entirely fine too, as of course that is your right. But not being able to take them, I encourage you to talk to your doctor to see if there's something you could take if it is necessary. The other component, as I said, is therapy and mental health, and that works for some people. And I would always consider that as well. I would look into that long before I would try supplementing because I just don't, if vitamins would do the trick, if taking extra omega-3 or vitamin D would do the trick, we would treat people that way because we want to help them. Sometimes people view the fact that it's supplements is like some kind of conspiracy from the medical community that we don't want to admit that the vitamins work as well. I swear to you, I'd be thrilled if the supplements worked. I really would. Like, I want you all to be happy and healthy. I do. And if something worked, I would scream it from the mountaintops. We'd do whole episodes on it. I would go crazy. But they just don't. Like, and that's why it's not a conspiracy. It's not some sort of, big idea that we're trying to keep it from you. I promise you, if I thought this stuff would work, we would say so. Next question is the purple man-eater. Constantly I hear chiropractors and nutritionists talk about toxins and detoxing. Is there any legitimacy to these terms, or are they just used to fearmonger people into using a product? It's more the latter. Let's be honest here. So, your body is incredibly good at getting rid of stuff that it's not good at. That's why we have, the ability to excrete our waste. The liver's whole job is basically toxin management. It's breaking down the compounds, preparing them for excretion. Your kidneys work to get stuff out. Your bowel works to get stuff out. Your body is a finely tuned machine for taking in the good stuff and getting rid of the bad. We did not, for thousands of years, have this crazy buildup of toxins that no one was getting rid of because they couldn't take blah, 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 blah. That's not how it is. Your liver's working great, most likely, unless you have a problem with your liver, in which case fix the problem with your liver. But, when everybody talks about toxins, like they're making up something vague and they're testing for vague things, and it's like, it's all like weird, like heavy metal, stuff like that. You're just, unless you're eating incredibly unhealthily, your body is doing a perfectly adequate job of regulating the levels of bad stuff. When we talk about toxins too, it's such a vague term. Like nobody knows exactly what they're talking about. It's always something strange and non-specific, and to get rid of it, it's always they're promoting something unregulated and natural. That makes me very skeptical of the whole thing, because again, your goal is not to fix some lab test that you just looked up or invented that looks at how much of something you have in your body. Your goal is health. And no one has ever proven in any kind of conclusive method that toxins or detoxing improves health in any measurable way. So no, I don't think that there's anything really to that. You'll notice that most of the people who promote it, eschew traditional scientific, and I say traditional scientific medicine, not traditional Western medicine, but they eschew scientific medicine, the idea that we should study or measure this stuff. That somehow, it's part of a conspiracy. I'm trying to hide it from you. I want you to be healthy. If I thought we were building up something bad in our body, I would tell you. Which brings us also to question 3, right on point. Anastasia Poulos, are parabens safe? I'm finding conflicting information on whether or not they could be a contributing factor towards breast cancer. You're finding conflicting information because you're probably looking at some legitimate information and some not. Let's talk about parabens. Parabens are these molecules which are used in some forms of cosmetics and antiperspirants. And there is an ongoing myth that they, as antiperspirants or deodorants, contribute to breast cancer. Why? Well, because there have been some studies that show that they can detect parabens in breast tumors. That does not mean that parabens cause breast tumors. There is no evidence that shows that parabens lead to breast tumors. The FDA has conducted multiple studies at this at various points in history because this myth keeps coming back. And the recommended level of parabens that's considered safe these days, I believe, is like 25%, of the compound. That's the recommended top level. Most cosmetics and antiperspirants contain parabens in levels of like 0.01 to 0.3%. Very low. Nowhere near the level that the FDA would consider them unsafe. People will make an argument that parabens are, estrogen-like. And since some breast cancer tumors, react to estrogen levels, that's how the mechanism works for parabens to cause breast cancer. But even the most powerful paraben is something on the order of like 10,000 times less powerful than an estrogen. And given that, again, we're only talking about like 0.1% to 0.01% to 0.3% of compounds, and being, on the order of tens to hundreds of thousands times less powerful than estrogen, there's not enough to do anything in your body as an estrogen. Not that would even so it's never been proven, ever, that parabens linked or cause breast cancer. This is all theoretical based upon studies that say I can detect some parabens at tiny levels of breast cancer. Having said this, it never stops. This is in one of our books. I can't remember which one. We even do the whole antiperspirant deodorant causes breast cancer thing. People will talk about, it gets clogged. It's clogging up lymph nodes. It's people. I think Gwyneth Paltrow just had on her blog, Moop. What is that called? Moop? Noop? Goop. Thank you. Goop. Another one again, another article again saying that bras cause breast cancer, which is also, again, a myth. And I only roll my eyes because it's like you beat these things. They just keep coming back. They'll make the argument that the underwire or the bra is constricting the tissue. And I hope you all get a screen grab of me just doing that. And that clogs your lymph nodes and leads to buildup of toxins or parabens or whatever else is the scream or blame du jour. And that's leading to the breast cancer. No evidence for this. None. And my issue is that this is all a terrible, it's a misdirection. It's a red herring. It gets us off track. We should absolutely be concerned with what causes breast cancer, and we should fight to improve the odds of women not getting breast cancer. We should do all of that. This is all a terrible distraction. Parabens? No. Parabens not causing it. So parabens are totally safe in the levels that are being used in products in the United States today. The FDA keeps it well regulated. They're being used in small amounts. The estrogen effect is incredibly tiny, if there at all. And there is no known link or proven link between parabens and antiperspirant and breast cancer. There is a definite link between not using deodorant and not being as well liked in society. So that's the way I'd err. Tivapox, which is an interesting name. Is there a country you'd like to see the United States healthcare system modeled off of? It's a great question. We get it all the time. There's no a country. Of course, the cynical response is I would almost take any of them that they get better quality, cheaper costs, and better access. I think there are aspects of other countries that are good, and you could pick almost any other country and find something positive to say. If you're asking me which system I like the most, France maybe? I like France's. It's expensive, but not too expensive compared to us. Sort of a single payer-ish baseline that they call Social Security, amazingly enough, and then a private overlay for extra stuff that most people get through their jobs. Huge number of benefits, great access, lots of choice of physicians and lots of choice of doctors. There's lots of perks and bells and whistles that many people seem to like. They adapt it all the time when people don't or want to see improvements. And they get really, really good quality out of it. It's great. So I like that one, but I like lots of them. You should watch our entire series on international healthcare systems because I talk about the positives and the negatives about most of them. France's negative mostly is the cost. People don't like the cost. Having said that, of course, it's expensive compared to everybody but us. So it's not really something we can say negative is the cost. Brian A. Thomas, how do you feel about direct consumer advertising? How the United States and New Zealand are the only nations to allow prescription drugs to be advertised directly to consumers. Good for the consumer or bad? Well, oh crap. Pardon me for a second. While I try to save my Mac. Anyway, yeah, that was bad. I assumed when you said direct-to-consumer advertising, you were talking about pharmaceuticals, because of course I think we're not going to get rid of direct-consumer advertising for most things. That's how advertising works. Thank you. And watch how I answer this question while I wipe it up. This is how multitasking talented I am. But you're asking about direct-to-consumer advertising for pharmaceuticals. As you correctly noted, there are most countries don't allow this. The United States and New Zealand are actually like maybe the only two, if not two of the few, that allow for direct-to-consumer advertising for pharmaceuticals. I'm not the biggest fan of this in general, because I think that there's decent studies that show that it's linked to the use of sort of Me Too drugs and more expensive drugs going up. And it's always cloaked in the idea of like, talk to your doctor about this disorder, when we all know that doing that results in more and more drugs being used, often the drugs that make the most money. I find it fascinating that the vast majority of drugs that are advertised for are drugs for which there are cheaper competitor products most of the time. You don't see any there are no ads for chemo. There's no ads for prednisone. There's no ads for albuterol. Because that stuff works. And everybody knows it, and we use it. And, it's not as if you're like going to go talk to your doctor about tamoxifen, to see if that might be right for you. No, you're going to get cancer. You're going to go to your doctor. They're going to say, this is the best drug for it. This is the protocol we use. Boom, you're going to get it. You have asthma, you come to the doctor, you're going to get albuterol. You have something that warrants a steroid, you're going to get it. So the advertisements are most often for drugs for which a Me Too drug exists, or which, there's a competitor that might be cheaper. And so that's why, so therefore it's marketing. It's not necessarily about trying to get the best drug out there. Having said this, legal, not legal, that's all up to the lawyers. But in general, I'm not the biggest fan of direct-to-consumer advertising. I also think it introduced a host of issues that there are problems with. But having said that, it is the law in the United States. What are you going to do? Peter Hassett asks, is umami or MSG usually safe to use in food? I promise to use in moderation. You're asking two different questions. Umami is the taste. That's like salty or sweet. And you wouldn't say, is sweet safe to use in food? That's not a substance. Umami is describing the earthiness, it's sort of like that earthy, tasty thing. Umami is known, or MSG is known, because MSG is like pure umami. It's like the pure taste. It would be like eating salt. It says salt is to salty, MSG is to unami. It's like pure that taste. MSG is used because it's like one of those 5 sensations of taste, and it's an incredibly potent way to get food to be umami, in the same way that salt is good to get food salty. There's a huge backlash years ago of people who thought that there was too much MSG and they were having reactions to MSG. It was like the gluten of years ago. Everybody wanted it out of their food. Now, of course, we've sort of swung the pendulum in the other way, where, MSG is sort of coming back in vogue, and it's fine. It's delicious. That's why, they use it. Again, this wasn't like some big corporation trying to fool you. It was like restaurants. Chinese food used a lot of it. Asian food used a lot of it, because it tastes good, and it was one of the flavors that they used. And so therefore, is it safe to use in food for most people unless you have a reaction to it? Yes, and it's good to use it in moderation, because you should use everything in moderation. But there is. Interesting fact, I read in a Malcolm Gladwell article once, that ketchup is one of the few foods, especially like Heinz 57, that actually has all 5 tastes in it. And that's one of the reasons why everyone loves it. It's like salty, sweet. What are the others? You guys know? Salty, sweet. I can't remember. There's 5 tastes, but ketchup's got all 5. And that's why, like, when kids taste ketchup, man, you can't go back. Like, that's it. They nailed it. It's perfect. Don't change the model. Screw the recipe. That's the one. And that's why ketchup is so delicious. Lisa Jones, is the flu vaccine safe for babies? So, not for babies, but at the age at which it's recommended by the CDC, that's when you should get it. So tiny babies, no. That's one of the reasons we try to immunize everybody, because everybody that's eligible. Because if we do, then the babies are safe. It's herd immunity. We can't vaccinate babies for everything. And even if we could, the newborns, it still takes months and months and months to get them vaccinated, even against the things that we can. That's why we vaccinate everyone. One of my favorite studies, and I've mentioned this multiple times in pieces I've written, looks at the varicella, or the chickenpox vaccine. We don't give that to kids until they are 1 year of age. But one of the amazing things that occurred is that after we started giving the chickenpox vaccine to kids over the age of 1, the number of kids who died as babies of varicella dropped to 0. To 0. Because the protective effects of vaccinating everybody above the age of 1 gave enough of herd immunity that the babies weren't getting it, and we were protecting the babies. And that's what we care about, protecting the people who can't always be protected. It's not just about you, it's about society, and it's about your siblings and your loved ones, your grandparents and your baby siblings and everybody, your friends, because everybody getting vaccinated protects them. And when we vaccinated the people over the age of 1, the babies didn't die. It's awesome. I don't think we have a similar study for influenza, but I'm sure actually they could probably show that risks of disease and hospitalization and death go down, but I don't know if it dropped to zero. But anyway, we can't vaccinate newborns against influenza. So that's why we vaccinate older people so that those newborns are protected. Next question is Mythology fan? In a few weeks, DST, Daylight Savings Time, ends, actually the 25th here. Does this give health problems in humans? I mean, people getting cranky, overly tired, or otherwise feeling crappy. I don't know. I've never heard of any conclusive studies. Of course, it's important to remember, like, first of all, humans are pretty adaptable. We change the time, everybody wakes up, everybody goes to sleep. Second thing is, I don't know that there's... I don't think worldwide people do this. I mean, this is one of those U.S. things. I think it's about farming, and of course, farming's over. But it's, for the most part. But most of those seem to have, gone away, or the rationale for doing it. At this point, I'm not even sure why. It's one of those things that existed. Not too long ago, in fact, while I lived here, Indiana didn't do it. It's crazy pants. Crazy pants, not because I think we should be doing it, but everybody else was. So like half the year we were on Eastern time and half the year we were on Central time. And it screwed up the TV. Like shows would change an hour one way or the other. That screwed with my health. That maybe I take it back. That messed me up big time because I didn't know what time the shows were on. And that was really annoying. As for physical health, I don't actually know. I bet people for a couple days may be cranky or tired the same way they would be when they're jet lagged, but I don't think it's anything consequential in terms of real outcomes that anyone can measure. Simple questions 95. Are there any benefits to taking probiotics? We get this question, I feel like, all the time. Let me think. Sure. I'm not even going near the computer with the water this time. Okay, so probiotics. I think there are some studies that talk about sort of acute diarrhea, that maybe it like returns people to more normal bowel habits originally. But a lot of the evidence that was there is now looking less and less strong as better and better studies get done. There was a study in the BMJ, if I remember correctly, a good meta-analysis randomized controlled trial that sort of backtracked and said some of this stuff's not as positive. There are certain conditions and certain issues for which there's better data than others. It's a good question. We should do a whole episode on this. I'm going to put it on the list. We'll do an episode on probiotics because then I can just point to it for these questions. So we'll get to your questions soon. DJ Boysenberry, with the new change in mammography screening guidelines by the American Cancer Society in place, are there any new technologies that improve sensitivity specificity, such as 3D mammography? I have a piece in the New York Times today about the new guidelines. You should all go read it. Immediately go read it. Share it on Facebook. Tweet about it. Go look at, email it to your friends. Go read it right now. Well, no, read it in like 10 minutes when I'm done here. Then you go read it. The problem is that we are pretty good already at detecting breast cancer. And we're pretty good at treating it these days. We've gotten good. The issue is not the sensitivity. The issue is the specificity because we are picking up way too many false positives for the breast cancers that we get. And so the number of false positives is so overwhelming that because remember, go watch the episode we did on Bayesian statistics. Unless your pretest probability is high, the vast majority of positive accounts are going to be false positives. In fact, we had an episode on that as well, which is, I think, the one with Mark Cuban and the blood test. So for most women whose risk of breast cancer is low, especially in like their 40s, a positive mammogram is so much more likely to be a false positive than an actual positive that we wind up overtreating and doing harm. We are so much more aware of breast cancer than we were that the chance of women being missed is lower than it used to be. And mammography is so good at this point that we're doing a great job, and that the new technologies wind up picking up more false positives than they do actually more cancers, because we're detecting the cancers. We're not missing the cancers. That's the problem. Is we need technology that will start lowering the number of false positives without raising the index of suspicion. And these days, there's a lot of belief that we're overtreating and overdoing, and that it's not doing us much more good. That the number of diagnoses is going way, way, way up, but mortality is not being affected. And that's why, the new recommendations are sort of arguing for less screening or more focused screening. So the 3D, the problem is that we keep thinking like we need more sensitivity. We don't. We're picking up tons and tons of things. We're picking up too many false positives. Annie Connolly, does extreme flexibility, i.e. dancer or gymnast, have a long-term effect on health, specifically joint health? Also, is there any way to reverse hyperextension in the joints, specifically knees? Well, if you have super flexibility because of a pre-existing condition, then yes, it would be indicative of health. But I don't think that developing flexibility through like activities like being a gymnast or dancing lead to long-term effects on health. But you should talk to your doctor. Hyperextension, specifically knees, if you've caused that, I don't know. That's a great question. You should talk to probably an orthopod or a physical therapist about that. But again, I don't think that there's a lot of good studies saying that doing the activities leads to long-term negative effects. Although, if I'm wrong, tell me. But definitely, if you are hyperflexible because of a pre-existing condition, it could be associated with some of those problems. And it's very important to distinguish between the association and the causality. Tepespos, does wearing compression shorts on a daily basis cause any issues with man parts? Are we really at the point where we got to call it man parts? We're a medical show. I assume you're talking about your penis and your testicles. Penis, no, not that I know of at all. Testicles, well, there are some, schools of thought that talk about how if you compress too much, that the temperature of being too close to the body might make your sperm count in the short term lower, which is why some people, when they are, having low issues with sperm counts, are told not to wear compression shorts. But that, of course, is reversible. Stop doing it. Your sperm turns over so quickly that stop wearing them. And that will go back to normal. This might have been one of the myths we did on that mental floss, because I remember talking about sperm counts, but maybe not. But you should go watch that. That was a really good issue of goat episode of Mental Floss on sexual myths. Go watch that, starring me. But having said that, I don't think wearing compression shorts on a daily basis causes any long-term issues with man parts. Of course, if you're not feeling good, if you're going numb, or if they're too tight, stop! But you're talking about, I think, long-term issues, and those are not there. I'm looking at the watch. Okay, we got to go into speed round for the last few here. Next question. What are your thoughts on the rise of non-prescription use of modafinil and other nootropics? You guys love these nootropics. Are those the smart drugs? Is that what those are? You ask me this all the time. Why are you all so worried about not being smart enough? I don't think this is a good idea. There are risks to all of these drugs. And there are not necessarily proven benefits. And you're using them off-label. You're borderline abusing them because you're using them in the ways they're not to be intended. And I don't know why you're doing it. Just don't. Don't. Now, if someday they prove it and they do a study and they show that it really has benefit with no harms, I'll reverse myself. But given at this point that there are proven risks and no proven benefits, and you're likely to get in trouble, probably not a good idea. Talk to your doctor. See if he or she disagrees with me. If so, tweet me and let me know. Mousy Roo, there's a lot of info out there about how sitting is bad for you. What about the physiological effects of laying? Is it as bad as sitting? We have an episode on this. You should go watch it, about sitting and standing. I don't think anyone's done the studies on laying down. Partially because you have to lay down to sleep. So that's a gimme. Your body is, you're meant to be laying. The problem is the laziness of sitting and the activity is sitting. And as we discussed, we don't know what the causal mechanism is, but there's a number of them. But a lot of it is not moving around and not doing stuff. I don't think if you're laying around all day, there's no way I can think that'd be safer than sitting. They're both still non-activity. If you're asking me, is it as dangerous? I'd have to say yes. I don't know how laying would not be the same as sitting. It's not about the upright. It's not about this angle versus that angle. People are concerned because it's the not moving around. Having said that, I bet we have very few studies on laying. A lot of the sitting studies are we can quantify that with looking at TV and looking at computer and stuff like that. The activities people do while sitting. I don't know if we have the same kind of data on laying. Final question. Andy Schroeder. Is there any health consequence in donating plasma with a high hemoglobin? What an interesting question. So here's the deal. Are you asking about health consequences to you? I don't know. But here's the thing. When you donate plasma, they don't take the plasma And then I believe, at least unless they've changed everything as far as I know, they don't take the plasma and then return the cells to you. They just take all the blood, get rid of the cells, and then use the plasma, where they separate it. So I don't think your donation is any different. The question is whether you should be donating blood if you have a high hemoglobin. You should talk to your doctor. Your doctor is the one to answer whether you are safe to give blood. And with a funny anecdote. Not so funny for me, but everyone else. First time I gave blood in high school, totally passed out and woke up vomiting. Horrible. Second time I gave blood in high school, totally passed out, woke up vomiting. And the person said, like, were you that guy that donated blood and woke up vomiting? And when I said, yes, they told me not to come back. And so that's a negative health consequence for me. I don't give blood well. I don't even know, because I have blood drawn all the time, so I don't know what the issue was. But man, it was the bag filling, whether it was psychosomatic, I don't know. But I don't give blood well. But that doesn't mean you all should not. It's an incredibly awesome thing to do. You save a life. Probably will save a life. You know, people need blood donation. So everyone should consider giving blood if possible. You, Annie Schroeder, I applaud you for asking the question. Go ask your doctor about whether it's okay if you have high hemoglobin. Although I'd also wonder why you have high hemoglobin. Go talk to your doctor. Good for everybody. Talk to your doctor. That's it for Healthcare Triage. Thank you as always for tuning in. Check us out on patreon.com/healthcaretriage. Anything you can donate is appreciated. Check us out on reddit.com/r/HCTriage. That is also a good place. Check us out on facebook.com/healthcaretriage. HCT merch. Get the mug. Get the poster, which is apocryphal or mythical, as we never seem to have the poster hanging in here. Thanks for tuning in, as always. We will be here next Wednesday. Check out Healthcare Triage News on Friday. Check out Healthcare Triage on Monday. See you next week.